Hi, my name is Deborah and I'm a professional astrologer practicing Western and Vedic techniques. And today I'm going to be sharing some predictions for the 23rd of August until the 21st of September. That is from the Virgo New Moon until the Virgo solar eclipse. So that means that we are talking about eclipse season. And as you might have noticed, we have two Virgo New Moons this year. That means that we have two opportunities to work on the same subject. And of course, I'm going to be going into much greater detail by rising signs. I always suggest that you go through this introduction, get a lay of the land, and then jump to your rising sign predictions, because otherwise you might be a little bit confused. And if you don't know your rising sign, you can use the chart calculator, which I'll link in the description box or in my profile, depending on where you're catching this video. This video makes much more sense if you listen to it by rising sign. First of all, the 23rd of August new moon is going to set the tone for the month ahead, but it is also the precursor to two eclipses that we're going to be having on the 7th of September, total lunar eclipse in Pisces, and then the second Virgo new moon solar eclipse on the 21st of September. So we have a lot to talk about. And first of all, let's define what eclipses are. Eclipses are triple strength new moons or full moons for the purposes of understanding the interpretations. And if you go out to the water, to the beaches, you'll find that the tides are always going to be more extreme on the new moons and the full moons. And so when we look at our life, things in our life are going to be more extreme during the time of eclipses, meaning that the polarity that we are being asked to choose between is going to be exaggerated. One area of our life is going to be much more pronounced and need a lot more attention, and the other area of our life needs to be let go of, needs to be cut out. So we're going to be looking at this by rising sign so you know which areas these are going to be. The other element is that this is not a new theme. We have been having eclipses in Virgo and Pisces since the beginning of the year, meaning that these are themes that will continue from that period, especially if you want to look back at March. We had eclipses then. Some of those same themes might come up again, with of course a few changes because the planets have also changed and shifted signs. So it's not going to be 100% copycat, but you're definitely going to see that it's similar themes. We do have a tendency to get caught up in every eclipse is going to be completely turbulent and completely different. We're actually just continuing with themes that we started with at the beginning of the year. This is also going to be the beginning of Virgo season. And Virgo season is going to last from the 22nd of August until the 22nd of September. So Virgos will be having their birthdays during this time. Now, to have your birthday during an eclipse period is kind of a significant thing. This is not going to be significant for every single Virgo out there, but it's certainly more pronounced if you have your birthday around the time of an eclipse. And of course, I'll be going into greater detail depending on your rising sign, whether this is going to be a more or less significant eclipse as well. These are all generalized predictions. So if you want to have a more in-depth look at what's happening for your own personal chart, looking at solar returns, looking at perfections and other techniques, please feel free to contact me for a personal reading. So here we begin the first lunation, which is the 23rd of August, new moon in Virgo. And this is ruled by Mercury. We always want to look at the planet that governs this because it's going to tell us whether or not we're going to have some success with it. Even though it is a depleting new moon, meaning it's near the south node, we might feel a little bit weaker. The dark of the moon is always like that. Mercury is actually in a good sign. So we do have the ability to come out of it. However, because Mercury is still coming out of the retrograde period, which lasted between 18th of July to the 11th of August, it's almost like we're waking up from a haze, coming out of a deep slumber, and we're piecing together what just happened. So we do have a slightly hazy Mercury, even though it is well placed. From the 25th of August to around the next new moon and solar eclipse on the 21st of September, both Venus and Mars are really not in great signs. And these are traditionally the planets that are associated with relationships, with our passion, with our carnal nature. And Venus is in kind of a bossy position, and Mars is in kind of a subservient one. So we have our yang energy acting like yin and our yin energy acting like yang. So right away we know that for some people where Mars and Venus do have something to do with relationships, this may cause a little bit of confusion, this may cause some miscommunication, and things may not flow as easily as they may otherwise. In early September, right before the first eclipse, Saturn moves back into Pisces. Now this is important because, as I mentioned before in my last few videos, we got a trailer between June of 2025 to the end of August 2025 as a preview to what 2026 to 2028 was going to look like. And anytime that Saturn moves, the area of where we have our burdens and responsibility also shifts. And so for some of you, this summer might have been a little bit challenging because actually Saturn doesn't do so well in Aries, where he was hanging out this summer. And this would have been a preview of what to expect, what kind of load you might need to expect, and in what area of life coming up after February 2026. So we're getting back now where Saturn is moving back into Pisces until February, meaning that the themes that you've been working on between 2023 to end of May 2025 are back in play again, meaning that we still have to finish off the work that we started on the last 2 years. Now, I'm going to be talking about what area of life this means. If you're still not entirely sure, you can go back to some of my other videos where I talk about that as well. But it's safe to say that this is a very significant transit because it's kind of like the last hurrah that we have, and it's happening during already a volatile time like the eclipses. Right after Saturn moves into Pisces, we have our first total lunar eclipse in Pisces at 15 degrees, and it's ruled by a nice Jupiter, so we do have some buoyancy, let's say. However, there's two things. One is that because Moon and Saturn are together, there is a feeling that we want to be expressive and emotional, but we feel repressed and we may not have the full capacity to express ourselves. And this can create some frustration along the way. The other reason is because Uranus is also going to be going retrograde in that same week. So we have Saturn changing signs, Uranus going retrograde, and the eclipse in the first week of September. This is high volatility, people. So hold your plans loosely is all I have to say. Even though the themes may continue from earlier this year, in this eclipse, we're going to be having the Uranus retrograde, which I do think is going to change things a little bit. And then finally, on the 21st of September, it's our Virgo solar eclipse. Now, this is the second Virgo new moon that we're going to be having this year, but it's at 29 degrees. So it's a little bit of a destabilizing energy. It's opposing Saturn. It has a slightly different feel to this first Virgo new moon on the 23rd of August. I will be going into much greater detail in my next new moon video, which will outline what to expect in that second eclipse. Aries Rising, these are your predictions from the 23rd of August until the 21st of September. That goes from the Virgo new moon until the Virgo solar eclipse. So of course, we're talking about the eclipse season. And this has been a profoundly important last few months for Aries, one which will signal a very big change in the next couple of years. So we're going to get into that. First of all, one of the key themes that we want to look at is health. So all the mundane things that you need in order to get your routine together, because the last few months may not have had so much of a routine. Maybe things have been a little bit chaotic, busy, not in a bad way necessarily, but certainly busy. And so you may have a weakened immune system. And with the eclipses coming up, you may catch a cold, you may get a little sick, and you need to do all the things in order to prevent that. So a lot of it will have to do with what you should do less of. Okay, that's really important. Not taking on more, but doing less. And you may also find that starting from the 7th of September, which is the lunar eclipse in Pisces, this is more of a time of retreat, going on retreat, taking time for yourself, being away from the world for a little bit. Now, this will also coincide with two things. One is that Moon and Saturn will be together in that first week of September. So you might feel a little bit down, or you might feel a little bit isolated. That's part of the process. And also because Uranus is going to go retrograde around that time, that may also be destabilizing. Okay, so it could come with some aha moments, let's say, some revolutionary moments. But in general, there may be also some situations where you just want to retreat from the world a little bit. And that's a good thing to do under these circumstances. Why have these last few months been important? Because Saturn has been in Aries from June of 2025 until the first week of September 2025. And this has been a preview for what's to come from 2026 for the next 2 years. A period of hard work, of building your career, of reestablishing yourself in some way, especially if you have planets or your house cusps at early degrees of Aries. However, that is coming to an end. So we're moving back into the field of needing to retreat, needing to take a moment and doing some more of the background work. I would also say that because Neptune is also in Aries, there could be a sense that your judgment may be impaired. Like maybe you have a vision for yourself, but you're not entirely sure how to do it. So try not to do too much during the eclipse period. Allow the information to sink in and settle in, and then take action after the September eclipses are over. Towards the end of September, on the 21st, we have that next solar eclipse, which I'll be talking about next month. And in this period, you get sort of another chance to do some sweeping out of anything that isn't working for you in your daily life. With Saturn being in Aries and with a couple of other transits, there may also be a tendency for burnout. So that's also something to keep in mind, that these last few weeks have been very intense and you may buckle under the eclipses. So taking that time for rest is really important in this period. Unfortunately for you, relationships are centerfold right now. Clients, partners, people that you're working with, those areas are blowing up. So as much as you want to take time out, and as much as the eclipses are suggesting that that's a good idea, you may not always have the possibility to do that. And that's certainly going to be up until the next solar eclipse on the 21st of September. And in terms of relationships that are more romantic in nature, let's say, this is definitely a period of lusty relationships. So bear that in mind. It's more a lusty relationship than it is a steadfast relationship transit. Taurus Rising, these are my predictions from the 23rd of August to the 21st of September, from the Virgo New Moon until the Virgo solar eclipse. So as you've noticed, we have 2 new moons this month in the sign of Virgo. And I will just start by saying that this month is going to be super busy, and your admin list, your task list is just ever growing. So right off the bat, we know that this is going to be a big month for you. And the eclipses will have several themes. First of all, the 23rd of August new moon and the 21st of September solar eclipse is indicating a weakness in romances. So this is definitely not one where we want to start new romances, start new relationships. In fact, it's a much better time to get rid of them. And lucky for you, you have 2 opportunities to do so, one on the 23rd of August and the second on the 21st of September. However, I would not wait until the one on the 21st of September because I think that will be a lot harder. So that's one element. Now, the other element is if you have children, this is going to take up a lot of time in your life. Your children may need you more in some fashion. Maybe they're going to get sick. Maybe there's something that's just sort of pulling you at home. Because in general, you're going to be at home a lot more. Maybe family matters require your help. Maybe you need to just do some interior decorating. You need to rearrange the furniture, clean out the house, whatever it might be. This is a time where the home gets a lot of focus. Now, in the first week of September, when we have the first total lunar eclipse in Pisces, this is a time where you want to let go of all the things that are just about your short-term desires and start to focus on the long-term needs. It's a really important opportunity to redirect your energy to the bigger picture, to the longer term vision, like what am I doing in the next few years, as opposed to what do I need to accomplish tomorrow? Because as I said, with Mars being in Libra, it is actually a really busy time right now where task list or sort of just striking off one thing after another is more a priority, and you don't really have an opportunity to think about the bigger picture. So that's very normal. However, it is an important thing to do. And since Saturn is still kind of in your way during the lunar eclipse, you may feel like you're not going anywhere, but you should continue to do so because Saturn will be out of your way in February of 2026 and you will be free to continue with your forward planning. So it's really important that you refocus in that first week of September. The other element, of course, is that since we do have the Uranus retrograde at the same time, there can be some unexpected curveballs where money is concerned, and so we want to be extra prudent. This is also not a great time for gambling, for any risky investments. If you're trying to put a deal through, if you're trying to put a trade in, I would not do this during the eclipse window, which is basically from the 23rd of August until the 21st of September, if not longer. But particularly because the area that's being weakened is these risky investments. So if anything, you might choose to let go of some of the investments that you've been making. Again, trying to focus on the long-term purview is much more favorable right now. Towards the end of September, starting around the 19th, you may find that you get into a much more perfectionist tendency, like something about the way that your partner chews their food is really annoying, or something about the way that the person that you're dating doesn't really sit right for you because you don't like the color of their socks. There can be this kind of weird idiosyncrasies. So bear that in mind as you move through the month. that we want to set our gaze on something much bigger, like what are your hopes and dreams, and try to make some time for that amidst a very busy month ahead. Gemini Rising, these are your predictions from the 23rd of August, Virgo New Moon, until the 21st of September, also a Virgo New Moon, a solar eclipse. This is an important month because both the axis of home, family, property, and of work and professional opportunities are being highlighted. So generally speaking, these are two major pillars of our life. And since both of them are getting attention this month, you are going to be very busy. It also means that you get two opportunities to look at the Virgo part of your life, which we will be talking about. Now, the 23rd of August, Virgo New Moon, is about letting go of something that's not working in your home. That could be something very literal. You're working on your home renovation, you're working on an interiors project, something in your house needs to be fixed and you keep trying to fix it, but it doesn't need fixing, it needs to be thrown away. It also might mean that a parent or some type of resolution is needed with a parental figure. And you again get that opportunity on the 21st of September to revisit some of these themes. Now, lucky for you that Mercury, which is first of all a very important planet for you, and second of all ruling this lunation, is well placed, meaning that you'll be able to resolve the issues or differences that you might have during this month, thanks to your quick wit, thanks to your skill building, maybe even a friend coming to help you out. So I do expect that you'll be able to survive this eclipse. Secondly, when we fast forward to the 7th of September, now the focus is on career. So we shift from home and we let things go at home and we move over to the career part, the professional opportunities. And there may still be some challenges in this arena because Saturn is there until February of 2026, but it's still advisable to set your sights towards that. So keep putting one foot in front of the other and make an effort in that area of life. This is very important. The other reason is because your professional activities and the income that you make are directly tied in this lunation. So there could be some developments in that area, despite the challenges. Bear in mind that because we also have Uranus stationing retrograde at the same time of the lunar eclipse on the 7th of September, you may have to be more flexible. So holding your plans loosely, yeah, there can be some curveballs for sure. Now, this is especially if you have your ascendant degree or planets at around 0 to 1 degrees of Gemini, or even late Taurus, 29 degrees of Taurus. So holding your plans loosely is the name of the game. You may also have a burning desire this month to gamble or to take high risks. This is not advisable. First of all, it's the eclipse windows. Those are always highly volatile times. Also because the eclipse is weakening a part of your chart that is related to our fortune or our savings. So be prudent if you need to make any financial decisions around this time. And finally, around the 12th of September, there is a period of loss, meaning that you physically might be weaker, you might be a little bit more run down. This is the period in between the first and the second eclipse, so we're still in the eclipse window, and it's a good time to let go of something that's not working for you, a little bit of emotional release. Again, a much more inward and introspective period. So all the best for this new moon and eclipse season ahead. These are my predictions for Cancer Rising starting the 23rd of August to the 21st of September, from the Virgo New Moon to the Virgo Solar Eclipse. And of course, this is going to be a big one because, as we all know, you are affected by the lunar tides. One of the key themes that we're going to be seeing is letting go of all the small tasks that don't serve your higher purpose. What I mean by that is you may be bogged down this year by all the small tasks, all the small, menial, trivial things that you need to do in life, which show your skillfulness, but don't really take you anywhere. So this is a period in which you want to let go of that. And you get two opportunities to do that on the 23rd of August as well as the 21st of September. But as I always say, better to do it sooner than later because it's always going to be harder down the road, and especially because the 21st of September is an eclipse. Now is the time to sweep out the things that really don't make sense. Don't over effort where you don't need to. You may also find that you have a friend or a relative or a neighbor who needs your help. So other people that require your attention, which again is going to take away from the things that you need to do this year. And this year is all about that bigger picture. I have talked about it ad nauseum in the last two videos, so I'm not going to repeat myself too much, but I do want to stress that the bigger picture is so important, especially as we come into the total lunar eclipse in Pisces on the 7th of September. That's going to be highlighting that dharmic vision. Like, what is it that you are striving for? What do you stand for? And of course, this might present itself with some challenges because Saturn is still in the mix and you might feel like you're not being able to get anywhere. But don't forget that you've already been working on this for the last couple of years. So you're not moving backwards. You're definitely moving forwards, even though the pace may feel slow. And on top of that, this total lunar eclipse is ruled by Jupiter, which is in Cancer right now. So you get kind of like a boost and a protection. You also have Uranus retrograding at the same time. Now, bear in mind that Uranus is retrograding that week, that first week of September. So there can be some complications, some curveballs. You don't want to plan too much. You don't want to execute on too much during this time, but it's still a moment where some great release may occur, but it's up to you to do that. Lastly, home affairs, meaning your physical home or your family, may take precedent during this time. So as much as you're trying to think about the bigger picture, and as much as you are trying to think about like your dharmic path and all of these almost more abstract concepts, there's still a lot of attention required at home. And you may not have the opportunity to get to that. So that's also something that you want to have some patience with, because that's not going to change. And you're going to have to learn how to strike that balance. Remember, when in doubt, just think about the bigger picture. You still have until June of 2026 for Jupiter's blessings, and you should take advantage of that. These are my predictions for Leo Rising, starting the 23rd of August, new moon in Virgo, to the 21st of September, also new moon in Virgo, but a solar eclipse. The main theme of this month for you is going to be money. That means that the 23rd of August period is about the money that you're making, your income, the inflow. And then when we fast forward to the 7th of September, we have a total lunar eclipse in Pisces, and we shift focus to money managed, your insurance plans, taxes, inheritances. So again, we do have money coming from both sides. The other element that's important is the way that you share money with others. So it's not just money that you manage for yourself, but maybe you're in charge of someone else's resources. Maybe you're in charge of someone else's assets, or vice versa, they're in charge of yours. And you want to make sure that those contracts are very clearly spelled out. If you are signing contracts during this time, I would avoid that around the period of the 7th of September eclipse, because the opposing party is much stronger. And remember that Uranus is going to be going retrograde, so we have some unexpected developments that might come about as a result of these eclipses. It's also because Uranus's retrograde is happening in a financially related house. If you do have a contract with somebody, this is a time where you may want to be prudent about money not leaking somewhere. Or if you're managing your own money, let's say you just want to make sure you aren't paying for a subscription that you didn't know you were paying for. Okay, something as simple as that. It doesn't need to be overly sinister. There is also the secondary question of health, because your body is a physical asset, and therefore it's counted in the same bucket, let's say, as the money as an asset piece. Chronic health issues can come up around this time. Your immune system might be a little bit weak because the eclipse is literally eclipsing your body. So it's weakening your body. And on the other hand, because Saturn is moving back into Pisces, which has something to do with chronic health ailments. So anything that you've been dealing with between 2023 to 2025, whether that's a physical chronic health ailment or something psychological, this is that last opportunity to do the psycho-spiritual housekeeping between September of 2025 until February of 2026. It's really going to lay down the foundation for your psycho-spiritual well-being for the next 29 years. Very important. From around the 25th of August to the 19th of September, which is the period which we're talking about in this video, Venus is going to be in Leo. Now, this is a period in which you could find yourself more magnetic to others. You want to be more playful. You get a lot more attention. So it kind of offsets a more serious nature of the eclipses. Now, depending on how you've been managing your financial matters or your psycho-spiritual matters in the last eclipse cycle this year, these next set of eclipses may not be as bad. Maybe they're just bringing up some of the old themes and you know how to deal with them. And therefore, Venus in Leo in this time is going to be much more playful, and a time where you can be a little bit more frivolous. However, if things haven't been working out in the way that you planned, then you may not have the same playfulness when Venus is coming into Leo. This period can also be bringing you some professional opportunities, However, you also want to be mindful of contractual agreements per what I've just spoken about before with mixing money with others. For most of the month, you may also find yourself generally quite curious, gathering information, talking to different people, making some short trips here and there. So there is also a period of just gathering information for yourself. Now, for women looking for men, in this particular case, you may actually be quite magnetic. However, you may find that you are kind of bossy and a little demanding, and he is a smooth talker who may not always have what he's promising. So just be careful when you're entering into relationships, because that is kind of contractual matter as well during this time, even though it can feel very lusty. Virgo Rising, these are your predictions from the 23rd of August to the 21st of September, which is the Virgo New Moon, until the next Virgo New Moon, also a solar eclipse. So of course you get a double emphasis in the next couple of months with Virgo New Moons happening twice. And this is a continuation of themes that have already began starting January of 2025. So it's not super new, but it is much more concentrated this month. These set of eclipses are obviously going to be important because they happen in your sign of Virgo, but they're also even more important if you are 24, 36, 48, or 60 years old. And again, not every transit and not every eclipse is going to matter to you. It's all chart dependent. But this is one of the techniques that you may consider to understand and see whether or not these eclipses are going to be potent for you. And of course, looking back at the March eclipses, which were also in the same axis, can give you an idea of some of the themes that you've already been working through. Now, for most of the summer, there may have been some much more deep inner work going on. Saturn was in Aries. This is a very introspective position for you. And also we had the Mercury retrograde, which is important because Mercury is one of the key planets in your chart. And this lasted between the 18th of July to the 11th of August. So we're really still coming out of that, and we are still in this haze just as we jump into this eclipse period. Therefore, you may still feel like you want to be in isolation, or you feel like you need a little bit of time for yourself. And that might only change after the 3rd of September when Mercury moves into Virgo, until about the 19th. Having said that, because we have eclipses happening in your sign, you may be physically tired. So what I'm saying is you're coming out of your shell, let's say, in the first week of September, but then from the 7th of September, relationships get highlighted. You start to have to deal with relationships or other people, contracts, clients. That can get a little bit overwhelming. And you might actually feel like retreating again, especially in that middle of September time. So don't force anything. This is definitely a whole year in which there is a need to step back a little bit more. Remember that from the first week of September until February of 2026, you will have an opportunity to revisit those relationship questions. Anything that you haven't resolved yet in the last 2 years, it's time to say goodbye to that. And bear in mind that the 23rd of August is that first opportunity, but also you get another opportunity on the 21st of September. So as I always say, please do not wait until that very last minute, because those lessons will be much harder at that time. But if you know that you do have this window to take action, then I hope that this is a helpful motivation to do so. Now remember that the 23rd of August is an opportunity for you to let go of certain things about yourself so that you are able to move on. And the 21st of September will also allow you to do the same thing, except that's going to be a solar eclipse, so things are going to go a lot more quickly. And because Saturn will also be back in your 7th house of relationships, it's also like the final hurrah for you to let go of certain relationships that aren't working for you. Try not to get into new relationships at this time, because they can be sort of punctured with some difficult aspects, and we don't want to start new relationships on difficult aspects. Bear in mind that you still have until early 2026 to move through these things, but obviously the sooner the better. These are my predictions for Libra Rising, starting the 23rd of August, new moon in Virgo, to the next new moon, 21st of September, also in Virgo, but a solar eclipse. This month, you are going to be very busy. Mars is in your sign of Libra for most of August and most of September, which means that there's going to be a lot of things to just get done. And you may find yourself in precarious situations with partners or clients or people that might just be a little bit more aggressive towards you. You may also be more injury prone, and you need to make sure that you're drinking enough water while Mars is creating a little bit of havoc. Now, the 23rd of August is actually about resting and retreating and taking some time for your mental health. However, once we move forward to the 7th of September, which is the total lunar eclipse, you are going to have a lot more things on your plate. So if you think you're going to be busy now, you're definitely going to be busy as the eclipses start to kick in. This is because the area of your life relating to administration and your responsibilities at home are only going to increase. And you're going to need to try and strike a balance between that and your need to do the rest and relaxation. Now, from the end of August until the 19th of September, you also have a particularly social transit. So this might be a period in which you actually do want to go out and meet a lot of people, or you connect with friends, or you can connect with your communities in some fashion. And you don't actually get a chance to do the rest and relaxation that you hope. I would also avoid travel in the first week of September for a number of reasons, but also because Uranus is going to be retrograding in that first week, and it's in a travel-related part of the chart. So if you can avoid it, or at least make sure that you're buying your travel insurance and making the necessary precautions, getting to the airport on time, etc. This is definitely a period in which you want to try and prevent burnout, because we're trying to strike a balance between the demands of our daily life, which the eclipses are going to be accentuating, and the need for rest and relaxation, which you're simply not going to have a lot of time. So as I started this little video, I said you were going to be very busy, and I'm going to end it saying you're going to be very busy. These are my predictions for Scorpio Rising from the Virgo New Moon 23rd of August until the 21st of September. Also a Virgo New Moon, but a solar eclipse. This month is all about asking yourself, what do you need out of life? How do I show up consistently as myself? And what is it that I need to let go of in terms of other people's expectations in order to move forward in life? And we're coming out of this Mercury retrograde period, which was really focused on your professional life, where there could have been a lot of back and forth. Some of it may have led somewhere, some of it wouldn't have. And at the same time, for most of August and for most of September, up until around the 22nd, there is also a feeling of needing to retreat. So quite a lot of background psychological work going on. And as we move into the first set of eclipses on the 7th of September, the area of life that's going to be highlighted is, who are you creatively? What is it that you need to do in order to step forward? It's letting go of the weight and burden of society's expectations around you. And that's going to be particularly hard because anytime we have the South Node in an area of our chart, we're sort of holding on to that in some weird and karmic way. But it's time to let go of that and actually move into what it is that is important for you. This lunar eclipse also ties the themes of who are you creatively to what is it that I truly believe in. There is a link to how you show up consistently as yourself with what your personal value system is. And in this year, up until June of next year, there is a profound focus on that. We want to make sure that what we're doing has to do with what we truly believe in. So what I'm saying is, up until the 21st of September, you're going to have a chance to ruminate on this, and some of these themes will continue as we move into the next eclipse cycle. The other element is that you may have some unexpected curveballs come around in that first week of September because Uranus is retrograde. Now again, if you have your 8th house cusp or planets at around that 0 to 1 degrees of Gemini or 29 degrees of Taurus, then this might be more relevant for you. But it's something to bear in mind in case you're making plans, that first week of September is more of a period of self-reflection as opposed to taking decisive action. So even though this is actually quite an introspective period, we do have a section of time from around the end of August up until the 19th of September where you may still have some professional opportunities. Clients may come to you, new partnerships may arise. So I don't think it's a good idea to go into hiding necessarily, because there may still be conversations and you don't know where those will go. The other thing is that you may also be drawn into the wrong kind of romance at this time. Very karmically tied romances, let's say. This is kind of a side note because I think that there's a lot of bigger picture questions to be answered during this time. But if you are being drawn into romances, just make sure that they are who they say they are. These are my predictions for Sagittarius Rising, starting the Virgo New Moon 23rd of August to the next New Moon 21st of September, also in the sign of Virgo, but a solar eclipse. So remember, go back to my introduction if you have not listened already. Sag Rising, this is one of your peak months. And I'm saying that because your professional activities as well as your home life are being accentuated. And those two things are usually on opposite poles, meaning that when we're at work, we're not at home. When we're at home, we're not at work. We can't be dealing with all of those things at the same time, but there may be themes in both camps that may come up during this month. Now, for most of September, from around the 2nd to the 18th of September, while Mercury is in Virgo, there may be some professional themes that come up. However, you may also find that they don't last, or there are changes to them, because the eclipses are all about letting go of something in your career. You may already be experiencing some of the feelings of change in career. What am I doing here? Where are my professional activities actually taking me? And so this month is just highlighting that again. Then fast forward to the 7th of September, the lunar eclipse in Pisces, which is all about your home and emotional life. So here you're being asked to connect to yourself in the psycho-spiritual sense, and maybe there's going to be some release work. Maybe there's going to be something that comes up at home that you need to deal with. Either way, it's a much more insular and internal experience. This is a theme that has already started since the middle of the year. So in general, I would say you kind of want to retract away from society right now. And it's not such a bad thing, because in the first week of September, we have Uranus stationing retrograde. That's not great for contracts or relationships. That can bring curveballs. So in general, I wouldn't advise on taking anything new professionally or contractually. Remember that this is a heightened period between the 23rd of August until the 21st of September. And once we hit the 21st of September, we have another Virgo new moon, which is going to be highlighting those professional activities again. You still have time to make decisions. Right now is more of an internal experience. Right now, it's a time to take care of yourself emotionally, physically, and mentally. These are my predictions. These are my predictions for Capricorn Rising, starting from the 23rd of August, Virgo New Moon, up until the 21st of September. Also a Virgo New Moon, but a solar eclipse. We are coming off of a really intense time for Cap Rising, because Mercury retrograde, which happened between the 18th of July until the 11th of August, was a particularly heightened time. As I said before in my previous videos, this could have been a psychologically stressful time. There were a lot of moving parts. There was maybe a lot of anxieties, a lot of personal housekeeping that needed to happen. So we're still coming out of that shadow period. And on top of that, this month's new moon is all about understanding what your personal value system is. So those two things are obviously going to be related. Needing to take care of yourself psychologically is related to understanding what you actually stand for. The new moon really highlights this element, and you get a second chance at that on the 21st of September. So these themes are still going to play out for the next couple of months. This is also a professionally charged period. It has been for most of August. It will continue to be for most of September. And on top of that, the lunar eclipse in Pisces on the 7th of September is going to also emphasize a need to make an effort in life. You are going to do some problem solving. You are going to put your nose to the grindstone, which is going to repeat the themes that you've already been experiencing for most of the year, but also since the beginning of 2023. So not new themes, but you're definitely going to see your professional life more charged. In addition to that, on the 7th of September, we also have Uranus going retrograde in that same week. So there may be some curveballs or challenges that come around in your professional life or your daily life. Since Mercury's retrograde has also been maybe a little bit psychologically intense, your immune system might be down, and you want to be watching out for, falling sick or just getting a small cold or something along those lines. Lastly, although this is a great year for partnerships and new opportunities, it's not such a great period for relationships, meaning that good partnerships can definitely come into your life. However, vain romances or vain relationships, let's say, are less favorable. Not that they're ever safe to begin with, but they're definitely less favorable now. So you need to learn to differentiate between what is a true partnership and what is a fleeting romance. Aquarius Rising, these are your predictions from the 23rd of August, Virgo New Moon, until the next new moon, 21st of September, also a Virgo lunation, but a solar eclipse. And of course, this month we have two big eclipses. This one is going to pack a punch because it's happening in significant parts of your chart, and it's going to bring up again themes that circle back to around March period. So they're not new themes, but we have a few different planetary permutations which make this particularly potent as well. First of all, the 23rd of August new moon is about what relationships you need to cut out. This is relationships where you're sharing resources with each other, whether that's money or contract, or you're bringing something to the table, they're bringing something to the table, but not really, so they need to be cut out, or maybe you get cut out. Okay, so this can also happen. And it's also a period in which you have a little bit more vulnerability in your psychological well-being and your psychological stability. So it's important to keep your good, healthy habits in place, like your good mental healthy habits, which you've already been working on, hopefully for these last few months. I would really like to stress that this is a period of personal mental instability because the eclipses are happening in the 8th house. So you may not have the control that you think you do. Other themes that may come up around this 23rd of August new moon is estate matters, insurance, your rainy day fund. So money that needs to be managed that's not necessarily actively coming in. Make sure that you're not letting those things leak in some way. Once we hit the 7th of September eclipse, that's going to be a total lunar eclipse in Pisces, activating your house of income. And that's going to bridge the work and your professional activities and your money all together. So more of a focus on how you make money, what is the money that's coming in, any assets that you own, whether it's your house or your car, or whatever it might be, things that belong to you. And you don't want to get complacent because we still have until February 2026, a period in which some of those things might be a little bit more challenging. They may need some patience. And on top of that, on the 7th of September eclipse, we do have Uranus going retrograde, and that can be, again, a destabilizing energy. So with all of that in mind, keeping one foot in front of the other with the diligent focus that you've had in this last couple of years with your finances, but certainly in this year as well. Aside from money and your daily life, just getting a little bit more busy, around the end of August, there's also going to be opportunities for new clients or new partnerships that come into your life. They may be a little bit bossy, they may be a little bit demanding, but they are new clients nonetheless. So you can watch out for those. And also because it's going to be a busy end of the year professionally. So that's also something to bear in mind, that it may not be quite the holiday period that you might envision. And lastly, one of the other themes that might come up around the time of the eclipses is not only the money that you're making, but also your physical body as an asset, meaning that what you take into your body, what you ingest, whether it's food or drink or anything else, and how it relates to your health. This is a less talked about aspect of the eclipses, but I think it's really important because it does tie into your psychological well-being, which I'm saying can be maybe neglected or is a little bit weaker during this month. And the eclipses might activate that depending on what is present in your chart. So keeping in mind, it's not just money, but also treating your body as an asset as well. Pisces Rising, last but not least, these are your predictions from the 23rd of August, Virgo New Moon, until the next new moon, 21st of September, which is also a solar eclipse in Virgo. And of course, this is going to be an incredibly potent month for you because Virgo and Pisces are sharing an axis, and the eclipses are happening also in your first house. So we get an opportunity 2 times since the Virgo new moon happens twice. And the big themes are going to be around relationship and personal empowerment. The first part is the 23rd of August. This is a new moon in your 7th house about letting go of relationships that aren't working for you. And there's already been themes of maybe distress in the last couple of months. First of all, we had Mercury retrograde. This is not ideal for relationships considering its placement was in Leo. And I've already talked about that ad nauseum in my last 2 videos, but it could have also been a period of just sort of working things out with people, having a little bit of an argumentative nature, things not generally working out. And at the same time, because Mars is poorly placed as well, you may also find that some of those relationships may not be above board, or you're getting the wool pulled over your eyes, or you're not entirely sure of what's happening in the situation. So in addition to, perhaps some outgoing expenses, like really needing to buckle down on your finances. All right, so that's a lot that you've had to deal with over this last couple of months. And this new moon is about severing those ties. So anybody that's not working out for you, let them go. Okay, you may also be let go in some way by somebody else. There may be a loss of a relationship on the other side. Consider that part of the plan. Fast forward to the 7th of September. In this time, we have the Pisces total lunar eclipse. Now, this is a big one for you because the focus is all about you. It's about you, your personal growth, what you need. How do I step into myself? How can I be self-sustaining? So it doesn't say that you're not going to have a partner or that your partner is going to leave you. But what I'm saying is one of the key themes is who are you and how do you stand on your own 2 feet? We still have, up until February 2026, a period of Saturn still in Pisces. And that means that there's still a little bit more hard work that you need to eke out until that time is over. And that doesn't mean that you're starting all over again when Saturn entered Pisces in early 2023. What this is that final hurrah of the work that you've already been building on. And this eclipse is only emphasizing that. So hopefully when you go into this eclipse cycle, you're that much stronger. Remember, you still have a really nice Jupiter transit, which can bring romances, which can bring opportunities of creativity and real personal growth. And I wouldn't discount that. This is definitely an easier eclipse from that perspective. Use that energy to empower yourself instead of focusing on the losses that you might be having from a relationship perspective.